You look at images like this, from the early to mid 1900s, black people portrayed by white people in blackface, reduced to caricatures like the mammy, the brute, the coon. These were blatantly harmful, extremely racist, and easy to call out. But as times move forward, these stereotypes don't disappear, they just evolve. Now instead of blackface, we have the glorified pimp, the hyper-violent young thug, the loud confrontational matriarch like Medea, played for laughs but still echoing old tropes, meant to contain and define black identity. And now we also have black women being portrayed as hypersexualized and hyper-violent figures instead of the real truth. What's dangerous is that we don't always recognize these stereotypes anymore. They're dressed up in entertainment and made to look like representation, but they're still rooted in the same anti-black framework. Black people in television and films have gone from being mocked to marketed, but it's the same cycle, just a new face every time. These portrayals echo and modernize the same harmful stereotypes that were used decades ago, and they're packaging them as entertainment for people to consume and ultimately believe that this is the real reality of how black people act, how black people are, and what black people go through. And many critics and viewers have pointed out how these shows and movies exploit black people's pain, anger, and trauma for profit, reducing them to spectacles rather than offering genuine representation of the black experience. So first, I want to talk about the policy issue itself that I'm focusing on. So this policy issue that my project addresses is the persistent and evolving presence of anti-black racism in American television and films. So historically, black people have been depicted through extremely racist caricatures and harmful stereotypes, from blackface in the 1940s, 1950s, and even in recent times as well, to the Mammy and Sapphire, to the hypersexualized or criminalized figures in blaxploitation films, the ignorant and hyper-violent black youth in the New Jack City era crime films and Boys in the Hood, Menace Society films like that, the Tyler Perry melodramas and modern-day reality TV shows like those on Zeus Network, which depicts black women as extremely violent, extremely sexualized, and so many other things that are not the reality of how black people are. So these portrayals do not just entertain people, they also transcend what is seen on TV and film. They shape public perceptions, they justify systemic discrimination against black people, and affect how black individuals are treated in education, employment, and in the criminal justice system, and ultimately in society as a whole. Because this media-based racism operates alongside institutional racism, because it reinforces social inequities and limits how black identities and black ideas are seen and valued because of the negativity that is shown within these films. So first, I will take you through the history of these so-called movies made for black people, which actually exhibited anti-black racism. And first, I will be talking about the blaxploitation films of the 1970s. So according to Spiner and Blaxploitation Reexamined, these critics argued that the white-controlled movie industry produced low-budget, shoddily acted black action films for African-American urban audiences, and in the process generated a film genre featuring images of black men and women exhibiting traits of extraordinary coolness, sexuality, and violence. Black characters were often portrayed as excessively stylish, sexually aggressive, and prone to violence. So these traits exaggerated and commodified real struggles for power and respect in racist systems, turning them into entertainment for profit, which created a lasting image of the dangerous and hyper-masculine black man, shaping perceptions both within and outside black communities. Spiner also says, blaxploitation, they said, celebrated urban pimps, pushers, hustlers, gangsters, detectives, ex-cons, hitmen, preachers, and cowboys who triumphed over the man, which is the white establishment, within a corrupt and racist system. So with this, the genre centered on urban black characters surviving in corrupt systems, but it did so by glamorizing criminality. While these figures often resisted white authority, which was called the man, they were also trapped in tropes that equated being black with being a criminal. It reinforced this false idea that criminal behavior is inherent and culturally accepted in black communities. Barrett and Flynn also argued that the negative portrayals of African Americans have long been served and seen as entertainment and ideological reinforcement for white audiences, both in the US and globally, dating back to before the Civil War, which also dates back to the time where in the 1900s and 1940s, where you see a lot of people in blackface and you see a lot of caricatures of black people to represent how they view black people as dark as coal, as big lips, as different iterations of harmful racist stereotypes. And these harmful constructions have historically functioned to justify racism and uphold social hierarchies, turning black identity into a tool for ridicule, fear, or moral warning, with the creation of the stereotypes like the Sambo, the Brute, the Mammy, the Jezebel, and so on and so forth. The legacy of these representations continues to shape how black individuals are perceived in society today. So in films during this era, black men were the only people harmed by the racist caricatures and the anti-black stereotypical characters that were displayed during the 1970s and the blaxploitation era. According to Spiner, black women were prominent in blaxploitation films, usually as readily available, highly sexualized girlfriends or long-suffering single mothers. So with this, black women were either objectified as sexualized figures or portrayed as endlessly burdened caregivers. These roles flattened black womanhood into two extremes, either over-sexualization or martyrdom for your child. It excluded more complex, empowering narratives, which contributed to the continued marginalization of black women in film and popular culture throughout time, which we still see. Additionally, with films throughout this era, drug culture was glorified and seen as the main way to make it out of the situation that you were in. So additionally, according to Oliver and African American Men as Criminals and Dangerous, the way in which the media, and particularly the news media, depict race and crime plays an important role in the stereotyping of black men as violent and dangerous. This highlights the significant impact media portrayals have on public perception, especially in the case of news media, emphasizing that these portrayals are not passive reflections, but they actively shape societal beliefs about race and crime. This idea also extends to film and television shows, which often depict black people in a negative light through harmful stereotypes. And these portrayals, if not critically analyzed and corrected, can be perceived as accurate representations of black life. In the 1990s, a new wave of films emerged that were not only anti-black, but also heavily relied on racist and stereotypical portrayals of black people. This era, often characterized by films like Boys in the Hood, Juice, New Jack City, Menace to Society, introduced new stereotypes about black communities, particularly the image of violent young black male, dysfunctional black families, criminalized black youth, and the perceived lack of intelligence or academic motivation among young black people. According to Benjamin, in discussing Boys in the Hood and the marginalization of black males, this film presents a powerful example in the character of Doughboy, who, like Ricky, ends up being gunned down in the street in this film. This outcome mirrors the experience of many young black men living in inner city communities trapped in a cycle of violence. And the ending of Boys in the Hood reinforces the stereotype that young black men are inherently violent or destined for death. While the film aims to highlight systematic neglect, it also plays into the expectation that the story of black youth must end in destruction, reinforcing a narrative that limits their futures to crime or death. This film also reinforces the stereotype of dysfunctional black families, like many other films of this era. Trey, the protagonist, benefits from the supervision and guidance of his father, while the brothers next door have no fatherly presence and suffer from a lack of mental and emotional support. This contrast promotes a common stereotype that black families, particularly those led by single black mothers, are broken and responsible for delinquent behavior. It overlooks the structural causes of absent fathers, such as mass incarceration, and instead places the blame on personal or cultural failure rather than systemic racism. Another stereotype perpetuated by films of this era is the criminalization of black youth. According to Benjamin, Boys in the Hood highlights how black adolescents are systematically funneled toward incarceration rather than academic or economic achievement. This connects to the often discussed school-to-prison pipeline and reflects the damaging stereotype that young black males are inherently on a path toward criminality. Even though Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society, Juice, and similar films attempt to critique systemic racism, their persistent focus on imprisonment and gang violence can covertly reinforce the association between blackness and criminality. Lastly, these films often depict the lack of intelligence and academic drive among young black men and women. According to Benjamin, youth of color are more likely to underperform on culturally biased standardized tests such as the SATs. While the article challenges the stereotype, films like Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society tend to portray young black characters struggling in school with greater emphasis placed on sports or gang involvement. This focus reinforces the myth that black success is rooted in criminality or physical prowess, rather than intellect, which ultimately erases the intellectual capacity and academic potential of black youth. Additionally, it's important to critically analyze the meaning of anti-black stereotypes in media and their relationship to racial identity, knowledge production, and the racist socialization of black youth. According to Adams, Batts, Stevenson, and Colton, the perpetuation of negative portrayals of black individuals in media serves as a significant socializing agent that impacts the self-esteem and racial identity of black youth. This emphasizes that repeatedly encountering such stereotypes can erode self-worth and shape how young black individuals see themselves, ultimately influencing their social interactions and personal identities. Furthermore, the same authors note that while representations of black individuals often reflect the socio-historical moment in which they were created, negative portrayals continue to affect how black people are perceived today. This underscores the fact that historical context alone cannot excuse the ongoing damage these portrayals cause. Even when people claim that these are just characters in films and in TV shows, the truth is that these characters and these stereotypes that they embody have real consequences. Tropes like the angry black woman, the hypersexualized black woman, and the hyper-violent young black man all influence how black people are treated in everyday life and in society. After the 1990s, black films and television shows began to shift their focus and in many cases started to target black women through new forms of stereotypical representation. The creation of Tyler Perry's films and television shows played a role in perpetuating stereotypes such as the sassy black woman, the mammy figure, the angry black woman, and even the strong black woman, which, although seemingly positive, can be deeply harmful. In Tyler Perry's work, the character Medea, for instance, asserts herself using exaggerated language and aggressive behavior. While this may be seen as comedic, it reduces complex black women to one-dimensional caricatures, reinforcing the idea that black women are inherently loud, rude, and confrontational. Perry also often includes caregiving black women who serve as emotional supports to other characters, which leans on the mammy trope. Another frequently used stereotype in his films is the angry black woman. Medea's disciplinary tone often taps into this stereotype by portraying black women as irrationally hostile. This trope has historically been used to delegitimize the concerns and emotions of black women. And by presenting these traits without deeper context, Tyler Perry's films normalize these harmful portrayals. Even the strong black woman stereotype, though seemingly empowering, contributes to the idea that black women must be resilient to all forms of hardship without vulnerability. This creates an unrealistic expectation and leads to the emotional neglect of black women in both media and in real life. Despite the decades-long perpetuation of anti-black stereotypes in film and television, it is critical that we take steps to challenge and dismantle these narratives. Therefore, I propose a national initiative focused on media literacy, education, and curriculum reform, beginning in middle and high schools and extending to colleges, similar to how the University of Maryland has implemented anti-black racism courses. This initiative would integrate analysis of racial representation in media like TVs and films and other forms of media into history, literature, social studies, and media classes. The goal is to train students to recognize harmful stereotypes, analyze media critically, and understand the broader social impact of representation. My proposed action builds on the work of organizations like the NAACP Hollywood Bureau, which advocates for accurate and positive portrayals of black people, and Color Changes Hollywood initiatives, which use research, media monitoring, and industry pressure to promote racial equity in entertainment. However, my approach really goes a step further because I'm targeting the audience, especially young black youth or youth in general, through education rather than focusing solely on changing the whole Hollywood industry. While reforming Hollywood is essential, I believe educating the public is both more feasible and equally important to me. By equipping young people with the tools to question and critique anti-black representations, we can create an informed public that resists internalizing and reproducing harmful ideas. This approach also moves beyond symbolic gestures by emphasizing long-term cultural transformation through critical thinking at a young age. To make this initiative feasible, key resources would include curriculum development teams, teacher training programs, and funding for public media campaigns. Support will also be needed from educators, school districts, policy advocates, civil rights organizations, media literacy nonprofits, and so many more people. I believe that together we can become more aware of how anti-black stereotypes are embedded in our TV and in our films and in our media in general. and more importantly, how to challenge and replace them with representations that reflect the actuality and the reality of Black lives and Black experience. Thank you.